The weight of the jewelry box felt heavier than it could possibly be, a small polished coffin in her hands. His face, just moments before smug and dismissive, had gone slack, the color draining away like water from a sink. He looked at the box, then at the woman who had just handed it to me, then back at the box. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The air in the hallway thickened, suddenly difficult to breathe, thick with the scent of betrayal and something sharp, like ozone just before a storm hits. Her eyes, the woman who wasn't me but had held my life in her hands, were fixed on his face, a strange mix of defiance and sorrow there. My own hands trembled slightly as I took the box. This wasn't how any of this was supposed to happen. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is right now. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know, bringing these stories to life. Our life had been quiet, comfortable, the kind of comfortable that creeps up on you, like ivy climbing a wall, until you can't remember the wall without it. We built it, piece by piece, brick by careful brick. Weekends spent tending a small garden we didn't really need, but loved anyway. Evenings curled on the sofa, the murmur of the television a soundtrack to companionable silence. He was good at his job, I was good at mine. We weren't chasing dreams of mansions or private jets, just the simple, profound dream of enough. Enough security, enough love, enough shared history to feel rooted. The jewelry in that box, it wasn't just gold and stones. It was milestones. The simple silver locket he gave me on our first anniversary, tucked inside the velvet lining. The delicate gold chain with the tiny pearl, a gift after my promotion. The diamond pendant, the one that caught the light and seemed to hold miniature rainbows, his apology after our first big fight, the kind that clears the air and makes the bond stronger. And then there was the antique sapphire ring, passed down from my grandmother. That ring was a promise, a piece of my lineage wrapped around my finger, a bridge connecting my past to our future. These weren't just possessions. They were moments made tangible, memories I wore against my skin. He started working late. At first, I didn't think anything of it. His job demanded focus, long hours sometimes. I'd leave dinner warming in the oven, send a text telling him not to worry. His replies became shorter, less frequent. The easy conversation over breakfast became strained, filled with long silences punctuated by the clinking of spoons against ceramic. He seemed elsewhere, distant, like his body was in the room, but his mind was traveling down a road I couldn't see. I tried to talk to him. Gentle questions, asking if something was wrong, if he was stressed, if there was anything I could do. He'd brush me off, a quick kiss on the forehead, a mumbled excuse about deadlines or a difficult client. He started keeping his phone face down. A small thing, but it felt significant. A wall going up. My gut started to twist, a cold knot forming deep in my stomach. Doubt is a corrosive acid. It eats away at trust, at security, at the very foundation of what you believe to be true. I told myself I was being silly, overreacting. Work stress, that's all it was. Men handle stress differently. I clung to these rationalizations like a life raft in a storm. But the signs multiplied. The faint, unfamiliar scent on his shirt sleeves. The way he flinched when I touched his arm unexpectedly. The night he came home past midnight, smelling faintly of perfume that definitely wasn't mine, his tie slightly askew, his eyes glazed over. He mumbled something about drinks with colleagues, but the lie sat heavy in the air between us. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. I didn't confront him then. I couldn't. The fear of what he might say, of shattering the comfortable illusion, was too paralyzing. It's amazing how long you can stand in the rain pretending you're not getting wet, just to avoid admitting the sky has opened up. The knot in my stomach tightened into a hard, painful ball. Sleep became elusive. I'd lie awake next to him, listening to his breathing, wondering who he was thinking about. Was she real? Was I losing him? Was I already lost? The house felt different. No longer a sanctuary, but a stage where a play was being performed, and I was the only one who didn't know my lines. The searching started subtly. A glance at his phone when he left it unattended. A quick check of his browser history. Empty, always. Looking through pockets before doing laundry. It felt dirty, invasive. It felt wrong. But the alternative, the gnawing uncertainty, felt worse. I was looking for confirmation of my worst fears, because the not knowing was unbearable. It felt like I was drowning, and I couldn't tell if the water was real or just a mirage of my own making. Then I found it, tucked deep in the pocket of a coat he hadn't worn in weeks. A small, folded piece of paper. A hotel key card envelope with a room number scrawled on it. And inside, a crumpled receipt from a flower shop. A dozen red roses, sent to a name I didn't recognize. A woman's name. My hands shook so hard I could barely hold the paper. The room spun. This wasn't a phantom, not a product of my stressed imagination. It was real, tangible, a physical manifestation of the chasm that had opened up between us. The comfortable ivy-covered wall hadn't just cracked, it had crumbled into dust. Holding that receipt felt like holding a live wire. The shock went through me, electric, painful. It wasn't just the affair, it was the cold, calculated secrecy. The lies told with a straight face. The sheer disrespect. He had been building a separate life, right under my nose, using the foundation of our life to do it. Everything I thought I knew, everything I trusted, dissolved in that instant. The pain was physical, a sharp, stabbing ache in my chest. I wanted to scream, to rage, to throw things. But I just stood there, frozen, the flimsy piece of paper evidence of my undoing. I confronted him that night. The crumpled receipt and the hotel key card on the table between us. His face, usually so open to me, shut down instantly. The excuses tumbled out, a desperate cascade of lies. Work trip, client gift, innocent mistake. He tried to gaslight me, telling me I was being paranoid, that I was imagining things, that I was the one creating problems. His words were poison, designed to make me doubt myself, to make me question my own sanity. It was another layer of betrayal, perhaps even worse than the first. He wasn't just cheating, he was trying to dismantle my reality. The argument escalated, voices rising, the quiet house amplifying the sound of our unraveling. He became defensive, then angry, then dismissive. It meant nothing, he said, the casual cruelty of the words a physical blow. Just a mistake, a mistake? This wasn't tripping on the sidewalk. This was a deliberate choice, a sustained deception. The conversation went in circles, him denying, me demanding truth, the air thick with accusations and the stench of burnt trust. Nothing was resolved. He stormed out, or maybe I told him to go. The details blur now, lost in the haze of shock and pain. He left, leaving me alone in the wreckage of our life, the receipt still on the table, a stark reminder of the reality he refused to face. The days that followed were a blur of silent grief and simmering rage. He stayed away, citing space. He had taken miles. He had taken our marriage, our future, our past. The house felt enormous and empty. Every object ached with memory, now tainted. The garden we tended together, the sofa we curled up on, the bed we shared. They all felt like mocking monuments to a life that had never really existed, not in the way I believed it did. It was during this time, in the suffocating silence, that I noticed it. I went to put on the sapphire ring, the one for my grandmother, for some absurd reason wanting the comfort of something familiar and solid. The velvet box was there, but it was empty. Panic seized me. I checked the other jewelry boxes. The locket, the pearl necklace, the diamond pendant, all gone. Only the cheap, costume jewelry remained. My breath hitched. He hadn't just cheated. He had stolen from me. Stolen the tangible symbols of our history, the heirlooms that connected me to my family. It was an act of profound cruelty, a final, devastating blow. This wasn't just about money or value. It was about desecration. He hadn't just given her time or affection. He had given her me. Pieces of me, wrapped in gold and silver, infused with my memories, my history, my love. He had taken the sacred objects of our life and handed them to another woman. The rage that surged through me then was different. It wasn't just pain, it was a cold, hard fury. It cleared my head, sharpened my focus. I was no longer a grieving wife. I was someone who had been violated, and I wanted justice. I sat in the empty house, surrounded by the ghosts of our marriage, and felt a transformation take place. The tears stopped. The shaking subsided. A stillness settled over me, cold and clear. I looked at the empty jewelry boxes, at the space where my grandmother's ring should have been, and a single thought formed: I would not be broken by this. I would not be a victim. He had tried to take everything, but he wouldn't take my strength, my resolve. The fear was gone, replaced by a chilling determination. I started making calls. Not to friends or family to cry on their shoulders, but to lawyers, financial advisors. I began to gather my own evidence, meticulously, patiently. I accessed shared accounts, downloaded statements, copied documents. He thought he was being clever, covering his tracks. But rage is a powerful motivator, and the desire for vindication is a relentless engine. I worked in secret, building my case, understanding that information was power. He had betrayed my trust, but I would use his own actions to dismantle him. This wasn't just about getting the jewelry back anymore. It was about reclaiming my life, piece by painstaking piece. I debated contacting her. The Mistress. The woman he gave my jewelry to. Part of me wanted to lash out, to blame her, to expose her. But another part, the colder, calculating part born of the betrayal, wondered about her role. Was she a willing participant in his lies? Or was she also a victim of his deceit? He was clearly skilled at manipulation. What if he had told her I was crazy, or that we were separated? What if he had presented the jewelry as something else entirely? I decided to wait, to gather more information. My focus had shifted. This wasn't about the other woman anymore. It was about him, about his actions, his choices, his betrayal, and about my retribution. The plans took shape slowly, carefully. Every step calculated. Every move precise. He was still distant, arrogant in his belief that he had gotten away with it, that I would eventually just accept his version of events. He didn't know I was building a fortress, brick by brick, using the debris of our broken life. I let him believe I was drowning in sorrow, giving him a false sense of security. It was a bitter performance, but necessary. I learned to hide my true feelings, to present a calm, almost detached facade. He saw what he expected to see, a broken woman. He had no idea the storm was gathering just beneath the surface. The day she arrived was a Tuesday, unannounced. The doorbell rang, a startling sound in the quiet house. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door, and there she stood. The woman from the receipt, the woman I had only seen in my imagination, now real and standing on my doorstep. She was younger than I had pictured. Nervous. She held a small, dark velvet box in her hands. My heart leaped into my throat. He was standing just behind me, having come to the door when he heard the bell. He froze, his eyes wide with a panic I had never seen directed at me. She didn't look at him. Her eyes were fixed on mine, filled with a mixture of shame, apology, and something else I couldn't quite read, perhaps anger directed elsewhere. I need to give these back, she said, her voice trembling slightly. She held out the box. That's the moment I described earlier. The air thickens. His face drains. My hands take the box, heavy with the weight of history and hurt. I opened it. Inside, nestled in the dark velvet, were my pieces. The locket, the pearl necklace, the diamond pendant, and the sapphire ring. They gleamed softly, familiar and yet alien, having been in another woman's keeping. A wave of emotion, sharp and complex, washed over me. Relief that they were back, pain that they had been taken, fury at the man standing behind me who had done this. She spoke again, her voice steadier this time. He told me, he lied to me. Her gaze flicked to him for just a second, pure ice in her eyes. He told me you were already separated. That these were sentimental gifts he wanted me to have. She paused, swallowing hard. Then I saw your photo. A photo in his wallet I wasn't supposed to see. A photo of you, wearing this ring." She gestured towards the box in my hands. I realized he hadn't just lied to you. He lied to me too. My husband behind me made a small, strangled sound. She continued, her voice gaining strength. I confronted him. He tried to lie again, but I found out the truth. About you. About how long you've been married. About these pieces. Her chin lifted slightly. I couldn't keep them. I wouldn't. Not knowing what they meant to you. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Not the crumpled receipt I had found, but a new one. Crisp, clean. He had already sold some of them. To a pawn shop. I tracked down where he sold them. My breath hitched again. He sold them? My heirlooms? The symbols of our love? The depths of his betrayal seemed to have no bottom. It took me a while, she said, her voice softer now, tinged with sorrow. But I bought them back. She held out the crisp receipt. This is the receipt from the pawn shop. Proof that I bought them back. That they are rightfully yours. She wasn't just giving them back. She had bought them back. She had paid for his betrayal. The sheer, unexpected integrity of her action hit me with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't the villain I had imagined. She was another casualty of his deceit. He made a choking sound behind me. I didn't turn around. My eyes were on her, on the receipt, on the box in my hands. I am so sorry, she whispered, her voice breaking. I never meant. I didn't know. That's when he collapsed. Not a dramatic, fainting couch collapse, but a buckling of the knees, a heavy thud against the floor as his legs gave out. He didn't cry out. Just fell, a heap of expensive clothes and cheap lies. The mistress flinched, looking down at him with disdain. I didn't move. I just held the box, the receipt still held out by her trembling hand. The silence after his collapse was deafening. It felt like the whole world had stopped breathing, watching this scene unfold in my hallway. The mistress, the jewelry, the receipt, and the crumpled man on the floor. He wasn't feigning it. His face was gray, sweat beading on his forehead. The shock, the exposure, the utter humiliation of being caught, not by me alone, but by the very person he used in his deceit, had broken him. The receipt was the final, undeniable piece of evidence, not just for me, but for the mistress, and now for himself. It proved not only that he had taken my sacred possessions, but that he had profited from his betrayal, selling off pieces of my history for cash. He hadn't just given them away in a fit of new-love generosity. He had callously liquidated them. The mistress buying them back amplified the cruelty of his actions tenfold. It was a level of coldness I hadn't comprehended until that moment. The mistress looked down at him, her expression hardening. "He sold your grandmother's ring," she said, her voice flat, devoid of the earlier apology. "He told me it was costume jewelry." The sheer disgust in her voice was palpable. He had not only lied to me, he had lied to her about the value and significance of the pieces he gave her, cheapening his own action. The receipt wasn't just proof he sold it, it was proof he lied about selling it, minimizing the act. This woman, who had briefly been his escape, now saw the true measure of his character, laid bare on the hallway floor. I finally looked down at him. He lay there, a pathetic figure. The man I had loved, built a life with, now reduced to this. There was no triumph in the sight, only a profound, exhausting emptiness. He hadn't just destroyed our marriage, he had destroyed himself. We called an ambulance. The scene was surreal. Paramedics carefully navigating past the mistress and me, attending to him on the floor. The mistress gave her statement to the paramedics, clearly and concisely, detailing his sudden collapse. She didn't mention the jewelry or the receipt. That part was ours. Mine and hers, bound together by his lie. She handed me the receipt again, her eyes meeting mine. A shared understanding passed between us. We were both survivors of his particular brand of wreckage. After the ambulance took him away, a suspected panic attack, stress-induced collapse, the paramedic said, though I knew the real cause lay heavy in my hands, the mistress and I stood in the quiet hallway. The jewelry box on the console table, the receipt beside it. The air was still thick, but the storm had broken. She hesitated for a moment, then spoke, her voice low. "I'm really sorry," she said again. "About everything." "You bought them back," I said, looking at the box. It wasn't an accusation, just a statement of fact. "I couldn't let him get away with it," she replied, a flash of fire in her eyes. "Not with that ring. Not with your history." We talked for a little while longer, standing in the space where our lives had collided. She told me more about his lies to her, the careful construction of a narrative that suited him. I listened, feeling a strange sense of kinship with this woman who had inadvertently caused me so much pain, and who had now, in a twisted way, helped to bring about a form of justice. She left eventually, disappearing back into the anonymity she had come from, leaving me alone with the quiet house, the returned jewelry, the receipt, and the lingering scent of antiseptic and betrayal. The aftermath wasn't clean or simple. There were hospital visits, his desperate attempts to explain himself, more lies, more manipulation. But something had fundamentally shifted. He couldn't deny the receipt. He couldn't deny the mistress's unexpected appearance. His carefully constructed world had imploded. The divorce was swift and brutal. The evidence I had painstakingly gathered, combined with the undeniable fact of the returned, purchased jewelry and the receipt, left him with little ground to stand on. The financial settlement reflected not just the dissolution of the marriage, but the cost of his deceit and the theft of my property.
He lost his job.
His reputation was in tatters. He was left with nothing but the consequences of his own actions. I kept the jewelry, and I kept the receipt. The jewelry were my memories, my history, finally back where they belonged. The receipt was a different kind of treasure. It was proof of his ultimate humiliation, the moment his carefully built house of cards came crashing down, triggered not by me, but by the unexpected integrity of the woman he had used. It was a tangible symbol of the plot twist that had saved me, not just by returning my possessions, but by exposing the rotten core of the man I had married in the most undeniable way possible. Putting on my grandmother's ring again felt different. It wasn't just a symbol of the past anymore. It was a symbol of resilience, of survival, of reclaiming what was mine. It carried the weight of everything that had happened, but it also felt lighter, unburdened by his deceit. The road ahead was uncertain. There was healing to do, trust to rebuild, a new life to forge from the pieces of the old one. But I wasn't starting from scratch. I was starting from a place of knowing the truth, of having faced the worst and survived. I had my history back, my dignity intact, and the quiet satisfaction of seeing the betrayer completely, utterly blindsided by his own actions. The receipt is still in a drawer, a small, crisp reminder that sometimes the universe delivers justice in the most unexpected ways, often using the very tools of betrayal to do it. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version in the comments. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. And subscribing helps bring more of these stories to life. Thanks for being here.